Hey there, Ada. I just finished watching your video on asking whether or not nuclear power is safe. And I have to tell you, I once held pretty much the exact same views that you do. And in the past, in the last few years, I lived in Japan as an English teacher there, and one of my students was actually a nuclear physicist. And when I started talking like that, he very promptly set me straight, put me in front of some good physics textbooks, and educated me as to what nuclear power actually is. Now, here's the thing: would you like to see a nuclear explosion? Everybody wants to see a nuclear explosion, right? That'd be kind of cool. Well, you actually see it every single day. The sun is, in fact, a giant nuclear explosion, the largest nuclear explosion anywhere in our solar system. And if we ultimately look at the source of power that we have, all of it is nuclear. All of it. Every last bit of it. What we're talking about is radiant energy. Nuclear power is everything from the microwaves that you cook your food in to the light that you're watching my videos with. Um, so when we talk about what is nuclear power, well, if you're using wind power, that's actually wind is generated by the motion of the earth, tides, the sun. It's air sloshing around due to nuclear power because the sun adds energy to the system. What's fossil fuel? Distilled nuclear power. It's all the solar energy the plants gather up, and you know it turns into fossil fuels over quite a cycle. So, with Fukushima in specific, uh, I want you to go back to some of those articles that you've read and find out if any of them actually quote numbers. This is a big point. This is something that all the news articles miss. I've only actually managed to find one news article on the Fukushima leak that quoted an actual number. And the reason that they don't quote numbers is because scary sells. You click on scary things. And when you see a news article that looks scary, you go, oh, nuclear power, there's a major disaster. Click, 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 click. They get their advertisers to pay for it, and, everything keeps going. It's why we in the West here will view certain regions as incredibly horrifically violent when, you know, most of the violence is very, very contained. So, for example, we thought that Northern Ireland was really violent for a time there, when it turns out that the area that was actually violent was about a couple square kilometers. The rest of the country was just fine. Um, so, when you look at these news articles, find the number. Go on to, say, I used Wikipedia for a lot of research. Go on to Wikipedia and find out what those numbers actually mean. Because when you look at the actual numbers involved, when they were talking about, okay, how much radiation is coming off this water, it was contaminated seawater that was put back into the ocean or leaked back into the ocean. Approximately 300 tons, which is less than would be found in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And the answer is that the amount of radiation coming off at a distance of 50 centimeters above the water, so they held a Geiger counter, about the width of my shoulders away from the water, they got a reading of 100 millisieverts. Now, what's a millisievert? How much is that? Well, with radiation, it's not easy enough to just say there is or there isn't. It's how much, what kind. And the radiation that we're talking about there is just a standard nuclear decay radiation, I believe. And it's honestly not harmful generally unless you ingest it, unless you have prolonged exposure. So the amount of radiation coming off of this was 100 millisieverts per hour. Now, to give you an idea, a full body CAT scan, The entire thing, a full body CAT scan, will give you about 30 millisieverts. So it's a bit more powerful than a CAT scan at a distance of 50 centimeters. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that with radiation, like all forms of light, when you double the distance, due to the radius of a circle, you actually quadruple, or you actually reduce by by 3/4, sorry, the amount of actual light that gets to it. So it's exactly the same as something like a flashlight, where you can hold a flashlight at a distance of 30 centimeters to the wall, and it will be 4 times as bright as a flashlight at 60 centimeters from the wall. So this means that by the time you're a meter away from this water, it's less powerful than a CAT scan. I want you to think about that. It's less powerful than a common medical procedure at a distance of 1 meter. And that's in its concentrated form. So this leaks into the ocean. What does the ocean do? It mixes it up. Now, where does it all go? It goes where it goes. That doesn't really matter. But when we're talking about, radioactive this and going to be a disaster that, I have to tell you what Japan experienced there was the single most powerful earthquake that we have ever documented. And to put this into perspective, the earthquake that caused the tsunami in Indonesia was 10 times less powerful than the one that hit Japan, and it killed something on the order of 400,000 people. Japan experienced 10 times that amount of earthquake and lost about 20,000 lives. So I think that Japan has done an absolutely bang-up job. They knew that they were in an earthquake-prone country, and they did their absolute best. Those power plants were rated to withstand an 8.0 earthquake. Who would have thought they'd get a 9? And so, I think that your stance on nuclear power is a little bit skewed and not truly based on science, but rather based a little bit more on scary sounding news articles. So I would really encourage you, go on to Wikipedia and look up the following items. Number 1, radiation. Find out what it is. There's 3 different types, and they all affect things in different ways. Number 2, look up radiation poisoning. This will give you an exact idea of how much radiation it takes to actually cause radiation sickness in a person. By the way, a lethal dose of radiation is about 8 sieverts. Okay, so we're going up by a scale of 1,000 from what we were talking about in this nuclear power plant waste. So that's 2. So find out what radiation is, look up what radiation poisoning is, look up various different ways of measuring radiation. So look up sievert, look up dose, look up there's just a few different scales that you really need to come to grips with. So radiation, is it really scary? No. You microwave your mac and cheese in it every morning. Can we measure, for example, the amount of radiation that's coming off the Fukushima plant, say by dipping a Geiger counter into the ocean in Hawaii? Well, yeah, we can measure that, but we can also measure the radiation that comes off a star 13 billion light years away. So I would really like for you to research this a little bit more, and instead of researching news articles that are designed to scare you and get you to click, I would like you to go through actual scientists, see what scientists have to say. There is a guy named Pete License on the YouTube channel periodicvideos.com. Look up their videos on, say, uranium. He is an absolute professional nuclear chemist, and he will stand there holding a handful of naked uranium for you. That's all I have to say.